Hello students, this is Ambush sir. I welcome you all in this online session of biology. Students, as we are well informed that the world is facing the pandemic of COVID-19, the only option to keep ourselves safe is to make social distance. Therefore, stay at home and be safe. At the same time, you need to be alert as far as your studies are concerned. So, I'm going to provide you with a series of online sessions. Let us begin with Chapter 1, that is Reproduction in Organisms. In this lecture of Chapter 1, we will cover the following points. Number 1, lifespan. Number 2, conclusion drawn from the lifespan. Number 3, reproduction. Number 4, significance of reproduction. And the last, number 5, types of reproduction. Now moving on to the next slide. Lifespan. Span means period, or even better, you can say interval between any two events. If we talk about life, it is two very important events called birth and death. And the interval which is established between these events is called lifespan. Students, you are already aware that death may be accidental or natural. In view of this fact, in the definition of lifespan, it is natural death that has been approved. So, the period from birth to natural death of an organism is called lifespan. Now, phases of lifespan. Between birth and natural death, 3 phases are there. These are number 1, juvenile phase, number 2, reproductive phase, and the last, number 3, aging phase. Students, you should note here that juvenile phase is applicable for animals. For plants, we use the term vegetative. Likewise, aging is applicable for animals. For plants, we use the term senescence. Let us take one by one. First, the juvenile phase. Juvenile phase begins at birth and continues until reproductive maturity. During this, the organism undergoes general growth and the different systems of the body achieve their development with the passage of time. Now, the reproductive phase. The juvenile phase is followed by reproductive phase, where organisms undergo reproduction and increase their number by giving rise to the offspring. At the end, the aging phase. Reproductive phase enters into the aging phase, where the process of reproduction slows down and the organism finally goes to death. Obviously, it is natural. Now look at this picture. Students, this picture is demarcated by two events, that is, birth and natural death respectively, on the extreme left and right hand sides. Between these events, there is lifespan showing its different phases. Now moving on to the next slide. On this slide, we take examples of the lifespan of a few organisms. Housefly, 15 to 25 days. Rice plant, 3 to 4 months. Crow, 15 years. Human being, 75 to 100 years. Parrot, 140 years. Banyan tree, 200 years. And peepal tree, 2000 to 3000 years. Students, here I'd like to focus on two facts. Number one, the attribute of maximum lifespan on this planet is reserved for some of the plants, not for the animals. Number two, the size of the organism does not have any correlation with that of the lifespan. In other words, organisms having the same size do not show the same lifespan. This can be best explained by taking the examples of crow and parrot, where they have almost the same size, but one shows lifespan of 15 years and the other 140 years. Now, moving on to the next slide. Conclusion drawn from lifespan. Number one, lifespan of an organism may be as short as a few days or as long as a few thousand years. Number two, whatever be the lifespan, death of every organism is a certainty, except single-celled organisms. Number three, despite a definite lifespan, a vast number of plant and animal species have existed on Earth for several thousands of years. Number four, definitely there must be some process in living organisms that ensures this continuity. And this is reproduction, something that we take for granted. Now we take the first conclusion. Lifespan of an organism may be as short as a few days or as long as a few thousand years. Yes, we have seen it in the preceding slide, where lifespan of housefly is 15 to 25 days, that is a few days, and that of the peepal tree 2000 to 3000 years, that is a few thousand years. Next conclusion. Whatever be the lifespan, death of every organism is a certainty, except single-celled organisms. This conclusion is very clear, by the definition of lifespan itself. Only single-celled organisms have exception to this conclusion as they are immortal. Why? This question is for you. Just think and answer. The last three conclusions can be explained by taking an example of human beings. Students, you are well informed that human beings have come into existence thousands of years back. After completion of their lifespan, that is 75 to 100 years, they should no longer exist as the definition of lifespan says, but they still exist. Why? Because during the lifespan, human beings have been giving rise to their young ones by a process called reproduction, which kept on ensuring the continuity of themselves generation after generation till date. Thus, reproduction has played and will be playing a very important role in maintaining our existence. Therefore, it should not be taken as granted. This example is applicable for all the species. Now, moving on to the next slide. Reproduction. As far as the definition of reproduction is concerned, it is defined as a biological process in which an organism gives rise to young ones or offspring similar to itself. For reproduction, reproductive system plays a central role. Other systems of an organism, such as digestive system, respiratory system, excretory system, circulatory system, and nervous system, etc. If we take the example of human beings, ensure survival of the organism. Look at this picture. A mother elephant with a baby elephant. One more picture. A hen with its chicks. In these pictures, the offspring are similar to their parents. In fact, this similarity is the concept of reproduction. Now, moving on to the next slide. Significance of reproduction. Reproduction maintains continuity of the species generation after generation. This I already explained. Next. Reproduction introduces variations in the organisms. Students, you have been noticing that the offsprings are not the exact copies of their parents. Even two offspring of the same parent are not similar, except the identical twins. This degree of difference among the offspring and between the offspring and their parents is called variation. Variation is a very important concept as it leads to evolution. Now, moving on to the next slide. Types of reproduction. Reproduction is of two types. Number one, asexual reproduction. Number two, sexual reproduction. Let us take asexual reproduction. First of all, I'd like to focus on the term asexual. So, in this term, A means absent. Sexual means pertaining to sex, that is, the state of being either male or female. Therefore, that reproduction wherein the concept of male and female is absent is called asexual reproduction. As a result, a single organism or parent gets adapted to reproduce. Here we reach a conclusion that asexual reproduction involves only one parent. Now, moving on further. If male and female concept is absent, sex organs also do not appear in the organisms. Students, you are informed already that the sole responsibility of the sex organs is to produce gametes. Now, we reach the second conclusion that gametes are absent in asexual reproduction. At last, but not least, the offsprings that are produced in asexual reproduction are not only identical to one another, but are also exact copies of their parent. The term clone is used to describe such morphologically and genetically similar individuals. This is the third conclusion. Now, we can write that in asexual reproduction, number one, only one parent is involved. Number two, gamete formation is absent. Number three, the offspring are morphologically and genetically similar, called clones. Now come to the sexual reproduction. On the basis of the comparison with that of the asexual reproduction, we can conclude sexual reproduction in the following points. Number one, two parents are involved. One is male and the other is female. Number two, gamete formation is present. Male parent produces the male gamete, whereas female parent produces the female gamete. Number three, the gametes fuse, fertilization takes place, resulting in the formation of zygote. Number four, zygote in turn undergoes mitosis to form embryo. Embryo undergoes further mitosis to produce the offspring. Number five, since two parents are involved, therefore, variation is established. Hence, the concept of clones is no longer maintained. Now let's move on to the next slide. Questions for practice. Students, These are some questions which cover the entire lecture. Students, if you really want to make a difference and to achieve the desired destination, you are advised to answer the questions that I'll be giving you at the end of each lecture. So, this was all about lecture 1. Thanks for being with me. In the next lecture, I'll be back with types of asexual reproduction. Till then, take care.